We're back. This is the second episode of our podcast. Thanks for joining us. I realized in the last episode we didn't sound very energetic in the intro.
This is the second episode of our podcast.
God, we're so excited.
Oh, boy.
Holy wowzy.
Gee whiz.
Willikers. How are you, young Kate?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm good. Our theme for this week's episode.
Yes.
We're just going to go out and say it. It's about bisexuality.
Well, it's about sexuality.
I identify as bisexual / queer.
I identify as trying.
Dude, put that on a fucking t-shirt. That could be our first merch. I identify as trying.
It's not bad.
Yo, put
I'd
that
wear
in the
it.
comments if you want it.
I'd wear it. Yeah, I think that has always been a little bit of a weird subject for me because I was raised, like we've talked about this before, I was raised super religious. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of stereotypes with sexuality in general and whatnot. So I was always a little bit apprehensive to admit that I also liked women.
And when you say there's a lot of stereotypes, you mean like with women that like other women?
Just the idea of like if you like other women, you're not feminine at all. So like by liking other women, you forego your ability to be a woman.
Yeah.
Which is, I understand, not true. And I've seen that that's not true and whatnot. But it's still like if you're raised with these sort of biases, it's kind of hard to shake them.
No pun intended, am I right? Biases? Wow.
Thank you.
That was a high five.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. It's interesting, though, that I grew up with the idea of if you like other women, then you're just like slutty or experimenting or like wanting attention or trying. And I wrote about this in my newsletter when I used to do that, about like my coming out experience.
What happened to that?
I just got busy, to be honest.
Okay.
I did a whole article about like what my coming out story looked like because I never really had to come out. Mm-hmm. For me, it was like from as long as I can remember, I always was attracted to women or people who identify as women. And I actually like did everything with women before I did anything with a guy. So like I had a tight group of friends where at sleepovers we would be like making out or practicing kissing or playing truth or dare or whatever. So it was like that was already integrated into my like I think sexuality as being able to like be liberal and learn what I was into. I never had anyone go like, ew, you can't do that or like, no, you can't do that. I think A, because we were like all really fucking horny, and B, because I'm into women. And so I wrote in my article that, you know, I feel kind of cheated because, you know, the LGBT community has gone through so much where like you really do, when that moment does happen and you are liberated, it's this like really freeing feeling. And I never got that. It was just kind of like everyone accepted it and it was fine and nobody actually gave a fuck.
I mean, that's from all of those people going through all of that stuff, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, you know, once I got into high school and I was dating and I was able to date women, it just, no one, like all the guys around me that, you know, all the other girls in my age were so concerned about were kind of like, oh, you make out with chicks? That's fucking hot.
That was a thing that would happen a lot. I know that like a lot of girls, remember girls in high school would make out with each other for guys to watch, which was always sort of like sex in my household was just not really talked about. We covered our eyes when people kissed.
What? Did your parents kiss in front of you ever?
No.
Oh.
I remember being young and like kind of experimenting with girls. But like when I was really, really young, and I just talked about this in therapy recently, and I remember it feeling like I remember getting in trouble about it and being like, feeling like it was wrong, like people saying like, be quiet about it or whatever. So I remember being super young and then getting in trouble for experimenting when I was young, but I was old enough to know that it wasn't like an exploration necessarily sort of thing. You know, when you're like really, really little, it's human nature for kids to like explore and be like, I have a vagina, you have a penis.
Like playing doctor. Yeah.
But this wasn't that. This was like, we were into it. You know what I mean? And so when I was told it was wrong, I was like, oh, fuck, that's wrong. And it's over-sexualized and sex is wrong. All this stuff is wrong. So it took let alone just identifying as, I think it might even be pansexual, might be the correct term. Identifying as that, it was hard because it took a really long time to even identify as a sexual person, even as a straight person, realistically. Because, you know, it's a lot for people to, I think labels are so good, but are also.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the pan thing because for so long, people would be like, well, why won't you identify as pan? Like, why do you have something against like trans people? Would you never date a trans person? And I, for a while, it was this word that I knew and felt safe calling myself.
That's what's so crazy is I feel like we grew up in a time where I don't think there was ever a time when this stuff didn't exist.
Right.
It feels like because it's so fluid, sexuality and gender is fluid, that it feels like sometimes they're like fleeting like feelings and whatnot, and we never had the vocabulary for them. And so now it's sort of like we went from being, I didn't even know that bisexual was a thing when I was little, but I was like, okay, I definitely am attracted to girls, but I'm also like very much attracted to men. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just be attracted to men then.
Yeah. So what has been your experience like once you moved, because you come from a very conservative upbringing. You lived in Philly, East Coast, kind of. You grew up
very
in
conservative state.
Conservative state. Around a lot of Republicans, I would say.
Yeah.
What was your experience like when you were able to move away from home, away from this strict mold of who you were supposed to be? What was that like?
Yeah, I think no matter how far you go, you're still taking yourself and all of your insecurities with you. So when I got here, I was kind of like, all right, nice and far from all of this. I could be whatever. Oh no, now I have to actually do it.
And be it. And rep it.
Instead, I just went into like a bunch of hiding. I just wasn't exploring it at all. Even in college, I was like barely hooking up a whole lot. And even like now, it doesn't really happen a whole lot. It's just such a hard thing for me to really, I say that I want it and want to like go through with
and
it.
That's
but it's
still bisexual. I feel like we should say that. Like, just because you've never hooked up or had sex with a girl doesn't mean you're not bisexual.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of people confuse that. Like, oh yeah, well, have you ever had a girlfriend? And I'm like, are you challenging
That's what people would say
my
to me
validity?
All the time. They'd be like, oh, bisexual, so you fuck guys and girls. It's like, I don't fuck anyone.
First of all, I don't have sex with anyone.
Not because I don't want to. It's just, now I'm kind of just like, with therapy and everything, I'm like really trying to figure out what it is that I like. And now it's such a fun feeling of being like,
the other thing is like it really does open so many doors. Like I go back, and I will say too that about the whole feeling like you need to rep for being bisexual when you do identify with it, because I constantly feel like we're having to stand up for ourselves or like explain ourselves to people, and you also don't have to rep for your sexuality. Like I make an assload of mistakes. Like even
I really think that you shouldn't rep for something unless if you have the ability to choose. Some people don't have the ability to choose. No matter what I do, I will still technically rep for women because I can't help it. But to say I am the person that you should go to get all of your information about my gender, my sexuality, and all of these things that I identify as, I'm the one who's going to be the spokesperson.
Right. Because, like, that's...
Look what fucking Rose McGowan's doing.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. We'll get into that. Up. Like, the idea that you can't make mistakes is hard because we're already under such a microscope for having such, like, a marginalized sexuality that... I mean, even on the first podcast, I constantly would say, like, boyfriend or a guy that I'm dating. Or when I go out to look for guys, like, even I still find myself being like, wow, I say boyfriend because it's been what I'm used to saying or like was conditioned to say for so many years. But then when I go home, I'm swiping on women only on Bumble. And that is also the fun part about being bisexual is like, you can fucking like pick and choose. And one day you're super attracted to the dick. The next day it's like vagina. You just can't get it out of your head or your hands or in your mouth. Interesting conversation is to always have to tell people that like you're dating or talking to about your sexuality. My joke is always like whenever I drop a queer comment, especially in front of other queer people, is always like, they'll be like, oh, are you gay? And I'll say half the time, which is also not great because there's this trope that you can only be 50-50 when in reality, like I said, every day it's different. Every minute it's different. Sometimes I'll be literally having sex with a guy and then think about a hot girl. And now I'm like, well, the gears have shifted.
That'll happen when I like masturbate. I'll be like, I'll start thinking of one person and then halfway through I'll be like, and now you.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Bi porn is never, there's no such fucking thing in the porn world of bi porn because it always turns into it's a threesome situation. It's,
I don't know how else would you do it?
Like, that's what I'm saying. Is like, if it's two guys and a girl, then it's some sort of gangbang, or if it's two girls and a guy, it's like a sexy threesome.
Yeah, I mean, porn is sort of made for straight men.
Yeah,
for the most part.
And to the idea of being bi, like I'm sure the question you always get asked, which is, you know, like, would you be in a threesome with me and my partner, or like,
oh, that's all constantly on dating apps. I'm like, oh, this girl's cute, and then it's like, you know, just looking for someone cool who's down to try something with me and my boyfriend that I love. And
like I'm kind of into that, which is also okay. Is that great for like stereotypes of bi? No, but like to me, sometimes it really fucking turns me on to be like the first person that a girl will try stuff with, or like I would always be the first person to introduce the idea of a threesome in my relationship. That like, that's not great for bisexuals everywhere because we're trying to beat these stereotypes. Also, it's okay to be into that. You're into what you're in.
Yeah.
Speaking of being into what we're in, Daddy just walked in the door.
Daddy is here, baby.
Yes, come join
Sit down,
us.
Daddy.
You're going to be sitting here talking into this bad boy.
All right.
I'm so happy
Ladies
you're here.
and
Excuse my ass.
Oh my
being
God,
here.
never.
Wow.
We've got the
Hello.
daddy of all daddies, our beautiful, beautiful guest friend, style icon,
Oh, God.
makeup revolutionary.
I hate you all.
I
Queer
see
queen.
the Fenty, the
see that?
lesbianist.
Leader of the
Leader.
lesbians.
Are you done yet?
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're
Sorry.
done. Sorry. Guys, Jazzmyne's here from
Hello.
BuzzFeed. You guys know her as, I mean, you do a myriad of style videos, but
But
what do you
like-
do? Who are you? What do you do?
Style, body positive, confidence leader.
Yes.
Like that's what I want. It's just everyone to be like confident no matter what.
I remember like when you first started,
Oh.
people were like, who is this girl? She came in with a fucking force. And everyone like who knows BuzzFeeders know that we're all very like individual. Like there's no two of us that are the same, rep the same, have the same point of view, have the same life experiences. But Jazzmyne came in like a fucking wrecking ball. Like I am here. I am doing it.
And this is something I love to point out about Jazzmyne.
Oh no.
Is that
Yeah, this is also a
Jazzmyne-
podcast where we spill all your secrets.
Jazzmyne also was an intern here and still working at Sephora.
Oh yeah.
The work
I didn't know
ethic,
that.
the work ethic in this person. Because I remember like talking about that and being like, yeah, she's going to work after work.
Dude, how
Yes.
did I not know
And
about
on the
that?
weekends it was
And on-
so rough.
Yeah.
How
It
did
was
you
so
handle
rough.
that?
I didn't. I didn't, and then I eventually quit.
Did
Yeah.
you quit once
I
you
had
got
to.
full time, or
Yes. I quit once I got full time
And
because
for those of you listening who don't know, it takes about 6 months to get full time.
Yeah.
So
So
for
you
6
were-
months, she was working 2 jobs
Oh,
and
yeah.
still making a name for herself here. You're
it was
a
rough.
role model.
And you go out a lot.
I go out a lot. I go out a lot. People think I go out a lot and that I'm a lot more fun than I am. I'm just capturing the best parts.
But you go out like on weeknights. No?
Oh, I go out on Thursdays. Thursdays
Yeah.
are my day.
Thursdays.
Well, we don't have to say it on this.
Nope.
Nope.
So today's theme of our episode, we're basically talking about the sexuality spectrum. And so Kate and I have been talking about our bisexual experience and tropes and stereotypes and situations we've been in. What is your relationship to labels and how do you feel about them?
Okay, so I guess I identify as a lesbian because I think I would identify as a bisexual because I find men very attractive, but
There's a big but.
I won't let them be in me. No, I'm kidding. But there's something in my head that's like I don't want to be another name on their list. Like I don't want to give them that power.
Interesting.
And so I've never slept with a guy.
Really?
Yeah. How censored are we on here?
Well, I mean, we can cut out anything you want, but
I've
we're
sucked
also
dick.
Don't
Yeah.
look me in the face and I suck dick.
I'm such a dick though.
So, but like maybe I don't know.
That's another thing, which is sort of interesting, because what would we say if like a straight guy who identifies as straight was like, oh, except I sucked this other guy's dick once.
Then are you bi?
Yeah.
That's
but
the
like
question.
I think
So
it's
it's
how you
interesting
want to
'cause
label
I'm over
yourself.
it. I'm
It's
over
up
it.
to you. Yeah, it's up to you. I had a really hard time. We were talking about this. I had a really hard time like picking the word that was best described my sexuality and like what I was into. And I still like kind of have like a hard time with it sometimes.
For
only
sure.
because it feels like it's so. I think it's so important that like girls growing up, or not even just girls, like anyone growing up who's like, I just want to see hope that I could be different. Like I want someone to give me the language to use.
Yeah.
And so I think for that reason it's like really important. But I think that also when it comes to figuring out your language, it's difficult because sometimes it means, well, it doesn't mean I never want to be with this person. It doesn't mean I'm always
exactly. That's the part that sucks.
Well, I was going to ask how you guys feel about this because I know my opinion is that you can absolutely change your label. Like, even though I knew that I liked women since as far back as I can remember, I still am like, well, one day that might be all that I'm interested in. And so how do, like, if I identify as bisexual, is that like life lock loaded tattooed on my fucking birth certificate? Or how do you guys feel like about changing your labels? Because a lot of people, you know, the majority of smart people believe you are born the way you're born. But I also think it's not wrong to say that if you can't identify with it or be out with yourself first, that it's okay to change the way you identify as life goes on.
See, here's the thing about labels.
Tell me a thing.
Labels are just to make other people comfortable with who you are.
Hey, motherfucking man.
So you don't have to change anything. You don't have to say it. It doesn't matter what if you fucked a girl tomorrow and married a guy the next day. It doesn't matter what you are.
Amen.
Because it's just to make everybody else feel better about understanding you. And because when people don't understand things, they get uncomfortable. And I'm like, guess what? Be uncomfortable.
I
don't care.
It's for paperwork.
Honestly.
It's for surveys,
it's
the government.
I'm having that time right now, not with sexuality, but with relationships. People are trying to tell me I'm in a relationship, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not, because there's not a label on it.
And if you don't have that conversation.
Right? And we have had the conversation, but it's just like, my friends are telling me that I'm in a relationship and you're doing this like a relationship and la 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 la. And I'm like, you just want to know that so you're more comfortable with me. But I'm fine with me.
Preach on it.
That's what's weird is that I also know, like, I like to play a little bit of the devil's advocate. When I was growing up, I would have, like, I really liked hearing that, like, women were bisexual because I was like, oh, thank God. That gives me something to, so, and I had this, like, we were talking about earlier, this, like, stereotype of in my head that was like totally learned but really hard to shake, that like being attracted to women meant that I wasn't a woman, I wasn't feminine, and like all of this stuff sort of like went away, and I also like I'm not great at like I never took a huge liking to like really putting a lot of effort into my appearance, so I felt like that meant that I wasn't feminine and all of that sort of stuff. Like, so feminine, that whole idea, so to me, they were one and the same, even though they're not. They're very much separate, and you could be like feminine, and you could just be whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be so labeled.
Not picking a label to make yourself comfortable is cool, but also to pick a label to make other people feel better. Like, hey, you can be a lesbian.
Well, it's about like representation too, and I feel like that's going to change. Like the more that society comes to terms with like people not wanting to label themselves, or you know, learning new vocabulary that we didn't even use 10, 20 years ago, it won't be a fucking thing in 100 years. So I feel like even though you don't want to identify, like even though you don't want to put a label on your relationship, it's almost like by not putting a label on it, that's a label.
That's putting a label. Yep.
When it comes to appearance and how you present yourself, there are a lot of stereotypes about sexuality based off of your appearance and how you style yourself.
Jazz, I feel like that's a perfect segue into talking about like we want to know about like how you became so fucking not only comfortable but like empowering to other people about your fashion and how that ties into like your sexuality, or how it doesn't at all.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard because I don't know, there are some days where I like looking more, I guess, masculine.
She's doing air quotes.
Yeah, masculine. But then people will tell me that, like, no matter what, I'm still not going to look masculine because you can clearly see that I have an ass and boobs.
Right.
And that's not masculine to them. But to me, I'm like, ooh, look at me. I'm a little boy.
Yeah,
you know?
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then there are some times where I'll be, like, in heels and lipstick and I'm like full out femme, and then I'm using the word femme. Right. And so that means that I'm like a lipstick lesbian, la 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 la.
Wow, that's interesting.
I don't know.
I've heard people say stuff, it does. It really sucks. I've heard people say stuff like, oh, like someone was like, oh, she used to only like guys who wear like V-necks, so she was gay the whole time. And it's like, what? Because
What's
guys
gay
who
about
wear
a V-neck?
Because guys who wear V-necks, this is not my opinion, but guys who wear V-necks are gay. And I'm just like, what, are you on the schoolyard right now?
Right.
Saying that sort of stuff, because then it's like, okay, so I can't even roll out of bed right now and just put on whatever, because then I'm a butcher, like I'm identifying as like a butcher lesbian. Is that are we allowed to say? Like, I don't even know what I'm fucking allowed to say.
No,
if it's about myself.
So the thing to me is that's hard being in the community is that if I go out and I'm dressed a certain way, a lot of people don't assume that I'm a lesbian. They either don't assume or they 100% assume because I'm like bold.
Right.
And that's rough for me because like I don't want guys coming up and talking to me when I'm trying to like find my next girlfriend or my next
Well,
night.
it's interesting what you were saying about like also like having curves and what that means. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you can't tell from the audio, go to the video version on this on youtube.com/boldly. I have no titties whatsoever. So sometimes I'll put on a shirt and I'll be like, oh wow, I look incredibly gay. And people will be like, oh, you're gay? And I'm like, well, half,
Right.
and then saying, and then it leads into this entire conversation. And so sometimes I get a little scared about dressing whatever like more masculine might look like, because what the fuck? Then you have gay men who are feminine. So it's like, what the fuck? What makes something feminine? Is it literally just anatomy?
I really I think it's just what we're programmed to
Believe.
to think.
Yeah.
Like pink is female.
Yeah, and I thought about
man.
that. Like I've been talking about this in therapy just so much.
Wow,
just
yeah.
so much. Because it's not even that that I don't want to like shave my legs or that I'm taking a I'm just, sometimes I don't feel like it. Sometimes I don't feel like taking care of certain things. And I don't think that should be reserved. I don't think that being comfortable should be reserved for people who identify as masculine. I feel like that's just a thing. I like
Pants, hair
comfort.
tie, chilling with no makeup on. That's when you're pretty. That's a Drake song.
Yeah, this.
Thanks, Drake.
Jazz, tell us some of like your tips, maybe for listeners who are.
She's getting so mad.
Well, I know what, like, you probably get asked this a lot of times, but you fucking can't help it when like you're as bold as you are. Like,
Yes.
what are your like confidence tips? Because whether you're dressing masculine, feminine, or in between, whatever you identify as, you still fucking rock it.
Thank you.
And so how do you wake up in the morning?
You know what?
I wake up just like, God damn it.
Here we go.
I guess what drives me is honestly like getting more of a weird reaction out of someone than like oh, you look so pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've been wearing like weird shit lately and like the past 6 months, like just random lines around my eyebrows.
I love those.
You
If
know?
you guys haven't seen it, go check out her
She
Instagram.
got the reaction she wanted from me
Yeah.
Right?
yesterday. I'm like,
Right?
oh,
What's going on with
there?
your
What's
eyebrows?
You know, I don't know, just like changing people's perspective. But I think where it all starts is if I start out the day feeling great about myself, I don't care what the fuck anybody has to say for the rest of the day.
Like, no one's gonna say like, oh, that's a weird look.
Right.
And you're all of a sudden gonna be like,
oh, never mind. Like, let me wipe it off. No, like, yes, that's what I want. And I don't know.
Is that like getting ready process in the morning? Because you also, I stole Get Ready With Me's from you on Instagram Live. She does the best ones. But like, is that process, that idea of like, you know, putting on your armor for the day important to you? Or do you wake up some days not giving a fuck?
Oh, no. I give a fuck every single day. Like I plan my outfits nights ahead of time because it's just like what I truly love to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I want to be tomorrow? What do I want to wear tomorrow? Do I want to wear no pants and fishnets with a hat that
Which
says daddy
is what
on it?
she's wearing, and it looks fucking killer.
You know, I'm just like, it just gives me so much excitement to put myself together and have people look at me, whether it's good or bad, like you're making them stop and look.
Yeah, and so people, you're hella there on Instagram. How do you deal with like comments of people who like don't get what you do? Because I feel like we're kind
That's
of
a good question.
We deal with this shit every day, and I feel like we've maybe developed a thicker skin, but not everyone. You know, people who aren't in the entertainment industry maybe don't get the same luxury of having thick skin the way we do.
There's also, I mean, there's a bit of a thick skin, but I don't think that there's a person alive who's able to fully let a mean comment roll up. I've been called, you know, terrible things on the internet, and it sticks with you.
Yeah.
Oh.
It really does.
Do you delete comments? Do you?
Oh, I block
spam? You
people
block?
regularly.
Yes, that is my favorite pastime.
You know, just because I'm not like in the mental place to like let that shit stay on my Instagram. You know, I'm not there yet.
You have to utilize your energy.
Right. And
especially in
granted,
this world we live in.
Right. So granted, though, if you leave a mean comment up or something, like the people commenting will go and like tear their asses apart anyway. Which I'm also like, okay. Yes. But yeah, it sucks. It was really hard for me in the beginning to get used to people tearing me down every video. Now I'm just like,
we talked about that when we went shopping. We talked about it. Jazzmyne took me shopping the one day, and we went to Cheesecake Factory and got drunk.
Damn,
and then
cool invite, guys.
It was a date.
Sorry, man. We went on a date last year.
It was a
That's
date.
fine, whatever.
That's fine.
It's fine.
We got dessert and everything.
I was really having fun that day that you guys went to go do that thing. So I was busy.
But I remember being like, you just have this like presence about you that's just so confident. And so when we were talking about like different insecurities and whatnot, I was like, oh damn, like confidence is a state of mind, but it doesn't mean that it's a lack of insecurity.
Right.
It's just how you let the insecurity affect you.
That's another merch idea. Insecure confidence.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a thing that we should all practice, because the second you start being like, I'm perfect, then you turn into an asshole anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, no one actually, I don't know if anyone believes it, maybe Kanye, but not even.
Yeah.
I do no wrong in my eyes, but that's a different
I get that.
project.
I get it. I just hope he's okay.
I know you gotta get back to work, but before we let you go, we want to talk about this secret Instagram you may or may not. We are here to expose. We don't have to say what the handle is, but Jazzmyne may or may not.
Wait, Jazzmyne? Okay.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, I went up to Jazzmyne and I asked her, I was like, hey, long story short, I brought up the idea of her being my hoe coach.
Oh, this is all Kate's fault.
We
all of it.
just did an episode about hocation and learning how to hoe.
So we were talking about it, and I was like, Jazzmyne, will you help me with this? Maybe produce a video. We'll do this whole thing, whatever. And that, I watched something in her face like spark. She like something was birthed at that moment, and she just. Then I saw your Twitter. You were just like, "Am I a hoe?"
I've been a hoe ever since that day.
Oh my God!
She was like, you know what? You came up to me and asked me this, and it was like you thought and all of it, like THOT and like all this stuff, and it was just like a new awakening.
Is that what inspired you to start this secret Instagram account?
Yes. Like, Kate has brought out the hoe in me.
Can we mention just like some of the content you
I'm
may or
so
may not
thankful.
see on this secret Instagram that may or may not exist?
So this Instagram consists of like the hoeiest pictures of myself.
It is the best jerk off material.
Right.
Not saying I have.
No, but
Not
it is.
saying I haven't.
It's essentially what I would send my hoes.
Yeah.
Pictures of myself.
But then you just also post it on the internet.
On the internet.
So if you can find that, tag Jazzmyne.
They already
in it.
have.
Oh, geez, they're flooding.
They have.
I know.
Where
Is
can
it private,
people
though?
find you? That's not your secret Instagram.
Okay, not my secret Instagram. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, both under Jazzmyne J.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that your middle name?
Jermaine, yeah.
Your middle name's Why is everyone got such cooler names?
Wow.
We have the most boring names.
Well, we're
What
like
is it? Yeah, you are.
Mine's Kelsey Lee.
Elizabeth Ann.
Oh, no, that's the worst.
Straight from the prairie.
I'm really from the prairie. I know how to milk a cow.
All right, Jazz, thanks so much for coming.
Thank
and
you, guys.
for coming
What a
on here.
delight.
Yeah.
I hope you'll come back. Thanks for sharing your insight. We love you.
I love both of
You're
you.
the best.
Sweet angel.
Come back and visit us sometime.
Oh, this is fun. All right, Jazz. All right, get the hell out of here.
Get the fuck out of here. Guys, that's our second episode. We did it once more.
it.
Look at us. We've committed to 2 full episodes of a
I've
thing.
never committed to 2 of anything.
We didn't have a sponsor this week because we still don't have a sponsor. So if you're a person that wants us to say things about your company, fucking call us, tweet at us.
let us know.
We want money from you.
And we want to help you. Help
Yeah.
us. Help you. I
Ourselves
was looking
still
for you,
at the end of the
but
day.
also for us.
Also, I guess the wrap up for this episode is just like, be your fucking self. If you can.
If you want, you know what? This is something I would say to younger me.
Okay.
You don't have to see it for it to be real in you. That's
Ooh,
it.
I like that.
Yeah.
And mine to myself would just be like, you're never gonna look good with bangs. That's all I got.
Hell yeah.
Guys, this has been Adult Shit, the podcast. Shit spelled with a 1 on iTunes. And we will be back next Thursday. We'll see you next week. Hit the music, maestro. There's no one.
1, 2, 3, 4. Bop, bop, stupid up.
Resident